Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when we look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what's wrong with me? We feel anxious, unfulfilled, maybe even hollow. We start believing that we are broken, that something is fundamentally flawed inside of us. But I'm here to tell you you're not broken. You're just following the wrong path. Let me take you on a journey not outward, but inward, to show you that the cracks you feel in your soul are not signs of damage. They are signs of misalignment. Let's explore 5 truths that may help you find your way back to the path that was always meant for you. The inner voice, faint, persistent, often drowned in the static of the world, is the compass of the soul. It does not shout, it does not plead, it simply is, and yet, in the chaotic orchestra of life, most of us spend our days ignoring this sacred whisper, trained from infancy to trust outer authority over inner knowing. We are molded not by our essence, but by 1,000 expectations, parents who impose their unfulfilled dreams, teachers who measure worth in grades and obedience, and a society that defines success by how well we perform rather than how truly we live. From the earliest moments, we are taught to seek approval, not understanding. We learn the language of comparison before we learn the language of self. We wear masks before we even understand our own faces. We chase applause, yet feel empty when we catch it. We achieve the dream, only to awaken in the night and wonder whose dream we were living, and all the while, beneath the layers of noise and performance, the inner voice waits. Quietly, steadily, faithfully, this voice does not speak in logic. It does not argue in terms of what is safe, practical, or expected. It is a voice of feeling, of deep, instinctual knowing. It arises not from the brain, but from the bones. It is ancient, older than the ego, older than society. It is the spark of the original self, the part of you untouched by the world, and when it speaks, it says things like, "This isn't me, this isn't right." There's more to life than this. There was once a woman named Sarah, a name like many others, a life like many others. She was the epitome of success as defined by the modern world. A corporate lawyer in a gleaming tower, dressed in perfection, surrounded by symbols of achievement. But each night, in the liminal space between the parking lot and the elevator, she wept. Not because she was weak, not because she was mentally ill, but because she had silenced the voice inside her for too long. She had followed every rule except the one that mattered, the truth of her own soul. Her tears were not of sorrow, but of suffocation. Her life was not a failure, but a misdirection. And one day, the whisper inside her grew louder than the roar of expectation. She listened. She stepped off the ladder she had climbed so dutifully, and she walked into a life no one understood but her. A life among animals, forests, and muddy boots. A life where the air tasted like freedom. She did not find happiness. She remembered it. This is not a story of abandoning responsibility. It is a story of returning to integrity, the integrity of soul. The world is full of people who feel broken, who wake up with dread, perform the duties of their day, and go to bed with a gnawing emptiness they cannot name, and they wonder what is wrong with them, but they are not broken, they are not lost, they are simply far from their own center. They have wandered too long in the forest of shoulds and forgotten the path inward. Their suffering is not a flaw, it is a signal. The modern mind is obsessed with answers. It wants clarity, certainty, control. But the soul does not operate in straight lines. It does not care for logic or reward. It moves in spirals, in symbols, in dreams. It speaks in the language of discomfort, longing, and awe. It is irrational, wild, and deeply human. And it is precisely this voice that holds the key to our wholeness. But to hear it, one must become still. One must allow the silence to rise. And in that stillness, one must be willing to face what is real, not the curated image, but the raw, trembling truth beneath. It takes courage to listen to the inner voice, because it will often lead you away from what is familiar, from what is applauded, from what is safe, but it will always lead you home. There is immense power in saying, I don't know where I'm going, but I know this is not the way. That is not weakness. That is the first step toward authenticity. The moment you choose to trust the inner voice, even when it contradicts the mind, the crowd, the plan is the moment you begin to reclaim your life. We live in a time of noise, a time of endless opinions, distractions, metrics. We scroll through other people's lives, forgetting to live our own. We consume more than we create, react more than we reflect. And yet, beneath the digital blur, the ancient rhythm still pulses within us. The soul is patient. It waits for you to remember. It waits for you to feel again. You may not have a map. You may not have a plan. But you have something far greater. The voice that says this matters. The sensation that stirs when you speak your truth. The fire that ignites when you create without apology. The peace that descends when you stop pretending. This is not imagination. This is the core of your being calling you back. And know this, the path of truth is not always the easiest, but it is always the most alive. It may cost you comfort, reputation, even relationships. But it will give you something infinitely greater, the feeling of coming into alignment with who you truly are. And from that place, everything changes. Not immediately, not always visibly, but profoundly and forever. The greatest tragedy is not failure. It is success at the wrong thing. It is reaching the top of the mountain, only to realize you climbed the wrong one. The greatest victory is not applause, but authenticity, not wealth, but wholeness. And the first step toward that victory is listening, not to the world, not to the fear, but to that small, unwavering voice that has always been inside you, waiting to be heard. Let your mind serve your soul, not the other way around. Let your decisions be shaped not by pressure, but by presence. Remember who you were before the world told you who to be. You are not here to fit in. You are here to be, not someone else's version of success, but your own embodiment of truth. So pause, breathe, go inward, ask not, what should I do? But rather, what do I know in the marrow of my being? That answer, the quiet, fearless, inconvenient answer, is the beginning of freedom. And once you listen, once you follow, you will find others on the same path. People who have stepped off the stage and into the wild. People who, like Sarah, chose dirt over gold and found their soul in the soil. They will not look like the world's definition of success, but they will glow with a light that cannot be faked, the light of a life lived in truth. And that, above all else, is why the inner voice matters. Because it is not just a whisper of who you are, it is a call to become. We all wear masks, not just during carnivals or costume parties, but every day in silent rituals of survival. These masks are crafted over years, perhaps decades, designed not with paint and feathers, but with habits, expectations, fears, and the deep yearning to be accepted. We wear them for approval, to avoid conflict, to blend in. We wear them to secure love, safety, and a sense of belonging. And yet, the moment we put them on, something vital begins to dim within us. The mask does not come on in a single moment. It is shaped piece by piece the first time you were told to toughen up, to act normal, to stop being so sensitive. Each time you swallowed your truth, each time you performed rather than expressed, a layer was added, and with each layer, the boundary between the self and the mask began to blur. What starts as a protective covering slowly becomes a shell so convincing, even you begin to believe it is who you are, but the soul knows. Deep in the quiet corners of your being, it knows. And it mourns. A study from the University of Michigan revealed that individuals who are high in self, monitoring those who are constantly scanning, adjusting, editing their behavior to suit what is socially desirable, are significantly more prone to feelings of burnout, disconnection, and emptiness. But we do not need data to recognize this truth. We feel it in the fatigue that seeps into our bones after a day of smiling when we want to cry, in the anxiety that clutches our chest when we laugh at jokes that feel wrong, in the sadness that lingers after yet another conversation where we said what was expected, not what was true. This exhaustion is not weakness. It is the soul's protest. The self, the true, undivided self, cannot breathe in a place of pretense. It suffocates when trapped behind an image, a persona, a performance. Every time you say yes when you mean no. Every time you suppress your pain for fear of being a burden. Every time you laugh to keep from screaming, you tighten the mask's grip. The suffocation is not metaphorical. It is spiritual, psychological, emotional. It creeps into every part of your life. It deadens joy. It mutes passion. It poisons connection. We tell ourselves we wear the mask to survive. But what if it's slowly killing us? We live in a world that rewards performance and punishes vulnerability. A world where image is everything and honesty is treated with suspicion. But authenticity, that elusive, sacred flame, is not a luxury. It is not a trendy ideal. It is oxygen for the soul. To live without it is to slowly forget what breathing ever felt like. The path to authenticity is not easy. It requires a courageous reckoning. It demands that you turn inward, away from the noise, the demands, the applause, and ask, who am I, truly? Not what role do I play, not what job do I have, not how others see me, but who am I beneath the mask? What are the truths I've buried to keep others comfortable? What are the desires I've silenced to avoid judgment? What is the pain I've hidden to appear strong? The answers may shake you. They may burn. But they will also awaken you. There is immense fear in taking off the mask. It feels like risking rejection, abandonment, humiliation, and in some ways it is. Not everyone will love the truth of you. Not everyone will understand it, but the ones who do, they will meet you soul to soul, no longer through the fog of pretense, but through the clear air of truth. Those connections will be real. They will nourish you. But even more vital than being seen by others is seeing yourself. There is a kind of peace that comes when you stop running, a stillness that emerges when you finally say, "This is who I am," not in arrogance, but in reverence, in deep respect for the life that pulses within you, not a life to be molded to fit others' expectations, but a life to be honored, explored, and expressed. The journey back to yourself is not a straight line. It's a spiral. You will forget. You will reach for the mask again, out of habit, out of fear. That's okay. The task is not to be perfect, but to be honest, to notice when the mask slips back on and gently remove it. Again and again, like tending a sacred fire, returning to it, feeding it, protecting it from the winds of conformity. Children know how to be authentic. They speak their feelings without filter. They laugh without shame. They cry without apology. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that this rawness was dangerous, that it needed to be managed, hidden, smoothed over. But what if the child within you is not something to be outgrown, but something to be returned to? Not in immaturity, but in truth. There is a whisper inside you that has never stopped speaking, even when you stopped listening. It says, "I'm still here, beneath it all. I have not left." That whisper is your soul, waiting not for you to be perfect or powerful or impressive, just honest, just real. We are not meant to live imprisoned behind facades. We are not here to be actors in someone else's play. We are here to live fully, deeply, wildly. To weep when it hurts, to dance when it's beautiful, to speak when the silence becomes too heavy, to be not a projection, but a presence. So ask yourself, as you stand here today, what mask am I wearing? And what has it cost me? And more importantly, what might I reclaim if I dared to remove it? Freedom begins in that moment, breath returns, light breaks in, and the soul, long forgotten, begins to sing. Pain, in its raw and piercing form, is one of the most misunderstood elements of the human experience. We have been taught, whether by culture, education, or survival instinct, to flee from it, to suppress it, to bury it under the noise of external stimulation. We distract ourselves with the glow of screens, with the sweet poison of comfort, with 1,000 numbing habits. But in doing so, we have betrayed a sacred messenger that emerges not to destroy us, but to awaken us. Pain is not our adversary. It is not the jailer of joy or the thief of peace. It is the ancient voice within, crying out not in vengeance, but in guidance. When pain appears, it does so not as a punishment, but as a call to consciousness. It arises from the depths where the soul and psyche intersect, where the true self resides, buried perhaps, but never silenced. It flares up like lightning across a darkened sky to illuminate that which has gone unseen within us. It is a compass, not a cruel one, but a devoted one, that always points toward home. Yet, how often we misread its message, how often we recoil, mistaking its urgency for cruelty. We run from the wound as though it were a curse, never realizing it is the very place where truth waits to be found. The pain that haunts you is not there to break you. It is there to break through the illusions you've built to survive. These illusions, of who we are supposed to be, of what we must avoid, of the roles we must play, are clever but ultimately self-abandoning. And the soul cannot abide in abandonment. It will protest, and it will speak through pain until you listen. When you feel disconnected, when the world around you seems dim and the air feels too heavy to breathe, that is the moment to stop asking, "How do I escape this?" Instead, turn inward and ask, "What is this feeling asking of me?" In this sacred act of listening, you begin to reclaim your inner authority. You begin to hear the deeper truth underneath the ache. Maybe the pain is saying you've outgrown a chapter in your life, and you are clinging to it because it's familiar. Maybe it's saying you've betrayed a part of yourself to please others, and your spirit can no longer tolerate the lie. Maybe it's simply asking you to remember who you are beneath all the masks you wear. Pain does not show up uninvited. It is the voice of your forgotten self, your neglected child, your silent artist, your broken warrior. It is the call to remember that you are not just a person moving through the world, you are a soul on a journey, one that is not linear, not tidy, but profoundly sacred. And like all sacred journeys, it will require a descent into darkness before the ascent into light. We are conditioned to see breakdowns as failure, but the truth is, breakdowns are breakthroughs wearing the cloak of despair. They arrive to burn away what no longer serves us. They arrive to hollow us out so that something true may be born. And yet we fight this process. We try to negotiate with our pain, just go away, just give me peace. But peace is not the absence of pain. It is the acceptance of its necessity. To reject pain is to reject the part of ourselves that is crying out to be loved back into wholeness. We must turn toward the wound, not away from it. We must sit with it, feel it, name it. Only then can we begin to understand what it has been trying to say all along. Think of the acorn that splits open in darkness, in damp earth, before it becomes the oak. Think of the caterpillar that dissolves completely in the chrysalis before it emerges as a butterfly. Think of the heart that must be broken open before it can expand with compassion. These are not metaphors. They are living truths etched into the fabric of nature and psyche alike. And so it is with us. Our most profound transformations often begin in the moments when we are undone. The pain we feel is not merely ours. It is ancestral, collective. It carries echoes of unspoken grief, generational silence, inherited burdens. When you face your pain with courage, You are not just healing yourself. You are breaking chains that have bound your lineage. You are becoming a lighthouse for others still lost in the storm. There is power in this. There is grace in this, and there is responsibility in this. So do not apologize for your pain. Do not belittle it. Do not rush to heal it so quickly that you miss its gift. Sit with it. Let it teach you. Let it break your heart open so wide that the light can finally enter. Let it shatter your illusions so completely that the only thing left is truth, and from that truth a new self can rise, one that is not afraid to feel, to grieve, to love, to hope. To walk through pain with open eyes and a willing heart is to reclaim your soul's authority. It is to take back your power from a world that told you to be numb. It is to remember that you are not here to simply exist. You are here to become. And becoming is not a painless process. It is the alchemy of spirit, the fire that purifies, the silence that speaks louder than any voice. This is the invitation that pain offers us, not to suffer endlessly, but to awaken. To shed what is false and return to what is real, to stop running and begin listening, to stop fearing and begin feeling. And when we do, when we choose to see pain not as an enemy but as a compass, something extraordinary happens. We begin to live not in avoidance, but in alignment. Not in fear, but in fullness. The next time pain visits you, and it will pause, do not banish it. Ask instead, what have you come to show me? And then listen, not with your mind, but with your whole being. In the ache is your answer, in the discomfort is your direction, and in your surrender is your salvation. The world is full of signposts pointing in all directions. From birth, we are presented with a chorus of voices, family, society, institutions, each one offering guidance on how to walk the path of life. And so we learn to climb ladders not of our own design, chasing heights built by other hands. It is seductive, this notion of certainty, of footsteps already laid out for us. There is comfort in conformity, in the silent agreement that if we simply follow the trail, we will find happiness, success, fulfillment. But what if the trail leads not to the summit of your soul, but to the edge of someone else's dream? There was once a man who came to me and said he had done everything right. He had studied at the most prestigious schools, earned titles that commanded respect, and built a life that seemed, to the outside world, like a masterpiece of ambition. Yet within he felt hollow. Each morning he donned his suit like a costume, stepping onto the stage of his life as an actor in a script that didn't belong to him. The tragedy was not that he had failed, but that he had succeeded in someone else's story. And this is the great danger that lies hidden in praise and approval. It can mask the absence of self. It can lull you into mistaking applause for meaning. The path of another may be paved in gold, lined with admiration, but if it does not echo your truth, it becomes a gilded cage. You cannot find yourself walking in shoes molded by someone else's stride. No matter how luxurious, no matter how admired, they will chafe and blister because they were not made for your journey. You were not born to imitate. You are not a copy, not a mirror, not a shadow of another's light. You are an original, drawn from the depths of something vast and unseen, and that uniqueness carries within it both a burden and a blessing. The burden is solitude, for your path will often be one only you can walk. The blessing is authenticity, for in finding that path you find yourself. We must ask ourselves, what are we chasing, whose definition of success has tied its reins to our desire? Is it the applause of the crowd, the silent nods of family, the admiration of peers who have never looked beneath the surface? Or is it the quiet voice within, the murmur in the depths of the soul that whispers when the world grows silent? There is a moment, often disguised as a crisis, when the soul begins to rebel. It may come as a sense of fatigue, of disconnection, of quiet despair, not a loud collapse, but a slow unraveling. The man with the grand house and the enviable career begins to question why the light in his eyes has dimmed. The woman with the perfect image begins to feel like a stranger to her own reflection. These are not breakdowns. These are breakthroughs. They are the soul's revolt against the false life. They are the first tremors of a deeper calling, the echo of a forgotten self asking to be remembered. For within each of us is a core, an inner compass that knows what is true, what is real. And though it may be buried beneath years of expectation and fear, it is never lost. It waits silently, patiently, for the day we dare to listen. To choose your own path is to engage in a sacred rebellion. It is to risk disappointing others so that you do not abandon yourself. It is to trade the illusion of certainty for the truth of becoming. It is to enter the unknown not as a wanderer but as a seeker. The world will not always understand. There will be moments of doubt, of loneliness, of fear, but there will also be moments of clarity, of joy, of deep belonging, not to the world, but to your own soul. This is the paradox. In stepping away from the path of others, you do not become lost. You become found. In releasing the need to fit into molds, you discover the shape of your own being. You begin to walk with purpose, not because the destination is guaranteed, but because the journey is yours. Every step becomes meaningful, not because it is praised, but because it is true. We are taught to admire those who achieve much, but we should revere those who have dared to become themselves. For in a world that profits from your conformity, the act of being yourself is revolutionary. It is the act of awakening, and in that awakening you find not just your path but your power. So do not fear the silence that comes when you leave the crowd. Do not fear the stillness that follows the shedding of masks. For it is in that silence that your real voice will speak, and it is in that stillness that your true self will rise. The world does not need more replicas. It needs the fire of the authentic soul, the clarity of those who have touched their depths and emerged whole. You are not meant to walk a path already worn. You were meant to blaze a trail through the wilderness of your own becoming. And when you do, when you honor that path no matter how narrow or steep, you become a beacon, not just for yourself, but for others lost in imitation. Your courage becomes a light, a signal that it is safe to be real, that it is sacred to be true, and that the only ladder worth climbing is the one leaning against the truth of your own heart. There comes a moment in the life of the individual when the noise of the world fades, not because the world has grown quiet, but because something deeper has awakened, something more real, more enduring than the chaos outside. This moment does not scream or announce itself with fanfare. It does not arrive on the wings of triumph or applause. It descends quietly like dusk folding into the horizon, soft but certain. It is the moment of true alignment when one begins to walk not the path of least resistance, not the trail carved out by others, but the road etched into the soul before time took shape. To walk this path is to return, though your feet may be treading forward. It is to remember, though the memory feels ancient and wordless. This journey does not lead towards something new, but rather towards something forgotten, an essence buried under layers of performance, adaptation, and survival. We are born whole, yet over time we are taught to dismember ourselves, to amputate our truth to fit in, to survive, to belong. We wear masks so convincingly that we mistake them for our own faces, and we wonder why the mirror no longer feels like home. But when the true path is found, and it must be found, not chosen like one selects from a menu, something inside begins to breathe again. Not with excitement, not with a rush of adrenaline or the tremble of uncertainty, but with peace. That strange, steady peace that feels like recognition. It is the stillness of a homecoming, a return not to a place, but to a state of being. The body remembers, the spirit exhales, and in that quiet there is no need to strive, no need to prove, no need to earn worthiness. You simply are, and that is enough. This is not the path of ease. The soul never promised comfort. It promised truth, and truth, while it liberates, often comes wrapped in fire. You will be asked to release much of what you have clung to: identities, roles, expectations. You will grieve illusions. You will walk through the valleys of your own shadows, but do not fear them. They are not your enemies. They are your gatekeepers. They are not here to break you, but to initiate you. For only in facing the darkness within can you retrieve the light that was hidden there all along. The tragedy is not that we are broken. We never were. The tragedy is that we were convinced we needed to be fixed. And so we wandered, not to find ourselves, but to become someone else, someone more likable, more successful, more acceptable. But the soul does not barter. It will not trade truth for approval. It waits patiently until the moment we are ready to stop running from ourselves and start returning. And when that return begins, the shift is unmistakable. The anxiety that once gnawed at your chest begins to dissolve, not because the external circumstances have changed, but because you have stopped betraying yourself. The sadness that once lingered like fog begins to lift, not because you forced joy, but because you made space for honesty. You are no longer waging war with your own essence. You are listening to it, honoring it, and in that honoring there is healing. To be at home in oneself is the deepest belonging. It is not contingent on geography, relationships, or status. It is the quiet confidence of knowing who you are and living in fidelity to that truth. It is the courage to walk away from what is expected and toward what is essential. It is the willingness to be misunderstood, to disappoint others, to lose false safety, all in the name of inner integrity. Many speak of self-love, but few understand its weight. True self-love is not indulgence. It is reclamation. It is the fierce and gentle act of returning again and again to the parts of yourself you were taught to exile. It is choosing to believe that your existence is not a mistake, that your desires are not random, that your voice matters. It is the daily practice of showing up, not as an ideal, but as you are raw, real, unfinished. And when you live this way, something extraordinary happens. Life begins to meet you differently, not because life changes, but because you have changed. You no longer distort your vision through the lens of self-rejection. You no longer interpret every challenge as a personal failure. You understand that storms will come, but now you have roots. You have found your ground. You have remembered who you are. The world will still pull. It will still whisper its demands, its metrics, its illusions of worth. But the voice within will be louder, not because it shouts, but because it speaks the language of truth, and truth resonates like a tuning fork in the bones of those ready to hear it. You will begin to recognize others on the path, not by their words, but by their presence. There is a calm in the eyes of the aligned, a steadiness in their gait. They do not chase, they attract. They do not grasp. They allow. You were never meant to live divided. You were not born to perform a role, but to embody a purpose. The longing you feel that ache beneath the surface is not a flaw. It is the compass of your soul. It is the homesickness that calls you back again and again to your essence. Do not ignore it. Do not sedate it. Follow it. Let it guide you even when the path is unclear, even when you feel lost. Because to be lost on the true path is still better than being found on the wrong one. This is the sacred work, the great remembering. It is not loud. It does not seek attention, but it is the foundation upon which all true joy is built. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be whole. And wholeness is not the absence of pain or the presence of applause. It is the deep, abiding presence of yourself with yourself. So walk your path even if it trembles beneath your feet. Walk it even if others do not understand. Walk it even if you are afraid, because every step taken in truth is a step toward home, and home is not a place. Home is you, you're not broken. You are a masterpiece in progress, misdirected, maybe. Confused, perhaps, but not broken, change the question from what's wrong with me to what part of me have I been ignoring, from why am I like this, to what path have I been forcing myself to follow that isn't mine. Your healing doesn't start with a fix. It starts with a return to who you were before the world told you who to be. So go back, go inward, follow the pull, and when you do, you won't just find peace, you'll find yourself. Thank you.